There is a big recruiting weekend coming up in the Oregon game, and the Badgers have two talents specifically coming onto campus that could change the dynamic of the entire class.
You are Locked On Badgers, your daily podcast on the Wisconsin Badgers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, Badger fans? Welcome to Locked On Badgers, your team every single day. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm your host, Ryan Harris, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. However you find this show, if you're going to work, listening, if you're watching on YouTube, if you're going to be live with us today, this is just kind of an out-of-nowhere live show, so I don't know how many people will get, but it doesn't matter. Wherever you find us, however you get here, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. Today's episode, we are taking community shows, our community comments, so we're like your thoughts on basketball, football. I'm going to play a little true or false with stats with basketball. What do we believe and what don't we believe 3 games in, plus a major recruiting weekend coming up for the Wisconsin Badgers. Let's get started there. But first, today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return over in FanDuel. New customers place a $5 bet. You get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Okay. Huge recruiting weekend coming up against Oregon this weekend. Now, once again, the Badgers, we've talked about this a lot as Badger fans. I feel like over years and years, it's really felt like Wisconsin has gotten shafted on premium night games. They've had a lot of night games to open the year against teams that, quite frankly, don't move the needle. And then they get a lot of big noon kickoffs where it's just hard to have premium recruiting events. Not this year, right? Not this year. The Badgers got the night game against Penn State. Excuse me. They got and another night game right here against Oregon. So they've had premium recruiting opportunities. This is a big one. This weekend, I want to talk about two specific teams two specific players coming up here that could really help change the dynamic of this entire class. The first one is Carter Smith. We've talked about Carter Smith. Carter Smith is the quarterback out of Fort Myers, Florida, 4-star quarterback, committed to Michigan. He's decommitted to Michigan, decommitted from Michigan. Sorry, as I have been having a little tech issues here, just trying to fix something. There we go. Okay, so Carter Smith coming into Madison. We talked about his game before. About 6'2", 190, 4-star kid. Offers from Michigan, Florida, Florida State, Louisville, plenty more. A high pedigree quarterback coming into Madison this weekend. He's already got some crystal balls. Listen, if you can add a 4-star quarterback to this room, that is a massive win. Now, I want to get specifically into Carter Smith's game, what I feel like our chances are there, what he's like, how he could translate into this quarterback room. But you can never get too many lottery tickets at quarterback, right? You keep adding talented guys into the room no matter what. And if you look at this quarterback room specifically, you have Tyler Van Dyke, who I don't know if he's ever going to play again. I don't know. I haven't heard, but bad knee injury last year. You have Braden Locke, who struggled. You have Landon Locke coming in the 25 class that has a knee injury. Cole LaCrue hasn't been able to make strides. Maybe Metzler is still a true freshman. This quarterback room desperately needs an infusion of talent. They need an infusion of talent. They need an infusion of upside. They need an infusion of numbers. Carter Smith represents possibly the best possible thing you can do late in the 25 class. Remember, most quarterbacks sign really early. If you can late sign a 4-star quarterback like Carter Smith, you absolutely do it, and it's a coup. Carter Smith's game, a couple things I find really interesting here. More of a multi-sport guy. Like, he runs the 400, he runs hurdles, he runs track. He was an elite baseball arm. I found this really interesting. He easily could have gone into the draft. Made maybe millions of dollars. He throws low 90s off the mound. He was an elite high school baseball arm, and then he decided to basically pursue football because that's where his passion is. He turned down a lot of money to pursue football. That's an intangible thing that I think bodes pretty well. Smith's dad compares him to J.J. McCarthy, almost a carbon copy of J.J. McCarthy. And then there's this really good quote with Carter Smith where they were talking about potentially going to Michigan. This is back when they committed to Michigan. And this quote caught my eye. This is from Carter Smith's dad. He said, listen, I love it if they run the ball. Carter loves it if they run it. He loves it. If they can't stop it, why change it? We're not about throwing it 60 times a game. There's a toughness in that program that Carter really enjoyed seeing. That was definitely a big part of him. That sounds like a Wisconsin quarterback, right? Now, he's describing Michigan, but he's saying, I don't care if we throw the ball. If it's running, work it. I'm here for toughness. I'm here to win games. I'm here to run the ball if that's what's necessary. He sounds like a Wisconsin quarterback, except he's also a dual threat guy, has a good arm. couple things with Carter Smith. He's not going to step into want to be ready. He has a bit of a wonky delivery. I wonder if it's because he's a baseball pitcher, right? A lot of times baseball pitchers have a lower setup. And if you look at Carter Smith's delivery, it looks a little bit like a baseball pitcher playing quarterback. There's a bit of he starts the ball really low and then he almost shot puts it like a pitcher, kind of like you would from a mound. And I think there's some mechanical stuff you have to clean up, but you're getting an athletic guy, you're getting a winner, you're getting a multi-sport track baseball, football athlete, a guy that had premium blue chip offers, and he has a lot of future casts. Be an enormous get. Please, you cannot go out there and just crap the bed against Oregon. I mean, maybe you do that and he sees playing time, but the problem is if you crap the bed, you lose the stadium experience, you lose the environment, you lose the jump around, you lose the fans, you lose all the excitement. I talked to kids after the Penn State game, recruits that were there. They loved the environment because it was still a game into the second half. They said the jump around was incredible and the game was incredible. You don't get that if it's 40-7, right? But either way, massive target coming to campus this weekend. Another one, Jaylen Williams. This is a newer one. I'm still kind of working to absolutely confirm he's coming this weekend, but everything I've heard, it sounds like Jaylen Williams is coming this weekend as well. 4-star defensive end, 4-star defensive lineman, also committed to Michigan. Well, not also. So Carter Smith has decommitted. Jaylen Williams, is committed to Michigan. Coming to campus. This is a 6'6", 270-pound guy, 4-star player. Listen to this offer list. Michigan, Auburn, Florida, Florida State, Ohio State, Tennessee, South Carolina, and I could go on and on and on and on. He is a massive blue blood offer list, and when you watch the film, you see why. He has a massive frame. The guy looks like a werewolf out there. 6'6", I'll stand up, come off the edge, really strong. A lot of times he's just running by people, has good handwork, a huge frame. Basketball background, so you see some of the athleticism. He has good change of direction, short area quickness as a 6'6", 270-pound guy. Again, you're talking about a 4-star defensive lineman here. Technique is a little weird. A lot of plays where the snap is happening, he just stands right up. He's going to have to work on his technique. He's going to have to get lower. He's going to have to be a little quicker off the line with his hands. But really good motor. Had a play where he tracks down a screen on the backside. He's 6'6", 200. I think when you project him out, you look at his frame. This is a 4-star defensive lineman that in a couple of years is going to be 6'6", 290. And the really interesting part here is he's coming in with another former Michigan commit, right? He's coming in with Carter Smith. There's definitely some type of connection there. This is a big home environment. And I've always said in this staff, if they can get kids on campus, they do an incredible job of closing, or at least an incredible job of making kids think really hard about saying no to Wisconsin. That's one of the best things this recruiting staff does. If they can get them to campus, Wisconsin's got more than a puncher's chance. And you look at this class, and you think about the possibility of adding a 4-star quarterback and a 4-star edge on the defensive line. It's the two biggest needs in this class right now. I mean, a 4-star quarterback every year is a big need, but this team desperately needs not just a defensive lineman. They desperately need a defensive lineman in this mold because I think they did a pretty good job on the interior this year. I like Ukpono a lot. I also really like Xavier Okpono and Drayden Pavey, the new guy. Those are two interior defensive linemen that I really like. But what they don't have is kind of a high floor 6'6", 260, 270-pound kind of elephant defensive end. That's what Jaylen Williams could be. So you get them both on campus this week, and there's other players coming as well. We're going to do another recruiting show probably later in the week. But what an opportunity to at late in the class at two absolute blue chip recruits at a premium position. Massive recruiting opportunity coming up against Oregon. Can the Badgers close? We'll see. A couple comments here. Tyler Strieber, man, Tyler's the best. Badgers After Dark, let's go. Zach Bartz, also the best. I don't know which one's the best out of those two. They're equally the best. Need to land Carter Smith. Sounds like a Michigan commit. Jaylen Williams is visiting as well. Yep. Two massive recruits. The one thing with Carter Smith, and I've talked to a couple scouts on this, he's a project. He is all the athletic tools you want, and I like multi-sport guys. I think they're more competitive. I think they have a little more intangible to them. But because of that, he's not a refined quarterback. So people just got to be aware you're not landing someone that's going to play next year. But maybe in 2 years, 3 years, I've seen a lot of J.J. McCarthy comps. I've seen Max Dugan comps from a couple people. Justin Jolka, who comes on the show, has thrown that one out there. This is a guy in 2 years might be your franchise quarterback. And you get as many lottery tickets as quarterback as you can get. All right, coming up, we're going to play a little true or false with basketball stats. We're going to get into all your comments. The ton coming up. This is a community show, but which basketball stats do I think are true through 3 games, and which ones do I think maybe a little fool's gold? That's coming up next on Locked On Badgers, plus all your comments. First, a quick break for our friends of the show. All right, we're going to take one quick break for our great friends of the show, and then we're going to jump back into this conversation. But first, today's episode is brought to you by our incredible friends over at FanDuel. FanDuel is awesome. Right now, NFL fans, if you bet $5, you get $200 bonus bets back guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. FanDuel.com is incredible. The official sportsbook of the Locked On Podcast Network, the biggest sportsbook out there. They are amazing and awesome. And you know that feeling when you hit a home run bet, that 3-team parlay, that 4-team parlay, maybe it's a 5-teamer, and you're sealing the deal with Tyree Walker, reaching over the end zone as you're screaming in the stands, seeing the dollar signs raining from the sky. I mean, I don't know that feeling because I don't ever hit parlays, but I'm sure there's people out there that do. And if you're going to hit those parlays, head over to FanDuel.com to do it again. A $5 bet gets you $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Spice up your weekend. Do it responsibly as always, but it is the best platform. Parlays, teasers, future spreads. If you were betting on the Badgers, this is the place you have to do it. Again, do it responsibly, but spice up your weekend with the official sportsbook of the Locked On Podcast Network. That's over at FanDuel.com. All right, let's jump back into this show. Oh, hello. Let's talk basketball stats. A couple things I want to put together. We're 3 games in, and it has not been a high-level competition. But we're 3 games in, and that's not data that you just ignore, right? That's not data that you just throw away. I'm going to play a little true or false on some basketball stats from team leaders to team statistics. The first one here, John Tonje, averaging 17 points per game. Do I think it's going to stay at that level, or is that stat false? I love Tonje. I love what he's brought to this program so far. I'm going to say false. I think he's going to finish the year around 12 to 13, which is still a really good number because he's going to shoot a high clip. He's going to be efficient. He's going to get rebounds. He's going to get to the free throw line. He's leading the team right now in free throw attempts, which I thought John Blackwell would do. But I do think Tonje the scoring probably drops off a little bit as teams start to see what he's doing. They're going to take some of that away. But really, really nice pickup. I love what John Tonje has brought to the team so far. John Blackwell shooting 39%. I'm going to say that's false. That's going to get better. Blackwell's missed a bunch of bunnies in the paint. A bunch of shots that I know he can hit. He had a layup the other day that he just completely botched. I think he's pressing a little bit. I think John Blackwell's pressing a little bit. I think he's still trying to find his place in an offense that's now more reliant on him, that has more defense geared towards him. I think 39%, you're going to see that number tick up into the mid-40s. And he's shooting well from the three-point line right now. So I think that number, he's just missing some shots that he's normally going to make. And over the course of 3 games, a couple bad shooting games is going to really make that percentage look worse than it is. In fact, we had a comment in here that I wanted to put up with. This is a community show again, so we're going to get a bunch of your comments up. But let's throw this one up here while we got it. Dimitri said, I really hope Blackwell can start to improve his field goal percentage. It's not acceptable right now. I hear you. Like, it's got to get better. I think it's a combination of short sample size and he's pressing just a little bit. Next stat here, Nolan Winter leading the team in rebounds, currently averaging 6.7. I think that's true. I think he's going to finish the year leading the team in rebounds. And it's because he's just a little bit more of an out-of-area rebounder, which there's a basketball term for he's just a positional rebounder or an out-of-area rebounder. Positional rebounder means he's just going to get the rebounds in his position. Steven Crowell is a positional rebounder. He's not going out of his space often to get a rebound. Nolan Winter will get out of his space to get a rebound. I like how he works in the paint. He's a little more active. He's bigger. I think he's going to lead the team in rebounds. I think he's going to average 7 or 8 on the year. He's at 6.7 right now. I think he looks good. I'm going to say true on that one. Here's an interesting one. Let me know in the comments. Carter Gilmore is currently averaging more minutes than Xavier Amos. Does that hold true? For the course of the year, does Carter Gilmore end up averaging more minutes than Amos? I'm going to say false. I think Xavier, as the season goes on, and we saw him play more today, he's just got such a skill set. He's a bouncy, long perimeter athlete at the 4 that can shoot the ball. Those guys don't grow on trees, man. Not that Carter Gilmore's do either. I think Badger fans have not appreciated quite enough of what he can do, and he's been better this year. But Ames has to play better. Amos has to play better this year, or has to play more minutes this year than Carter Gilmore. I think it's going to happen as the season goes on. Last one here. Steven Crowell is currently leading the team in assists. True or false the rest of the year? I think it's true. And I talked about this. I think he's going to play point forward, point center, like kind of a Jokic role. and not Jokic, right? Because that's one of the 5 greatest players in the world right now. But that type of role where they're going to throw it into him, he's going to survey the court. He's going to hold it for a tick. If they send a double, he's going to find the open shooter, and they're going to hit it. Wisconsin's shooting 37% from 3 right now. I think that number is going to hold. It's a good shooting team. We also saw a lot of nice cuts, specifically in the App State game. We had a nice cut from Tanjay, also a nice cut from Kamari McGee, where Stephen Carell specifically found him for a layup. Sorry, if you're watching on YouTube, when I'm talking about layups, I'll actually do the motion, which is why you might see me move. If you're listening on the podcast, you're not getting that effect, but it is what it is. Yeah, I think Stephen Carell is going to lead this team in assists this year. I think that's a true thing. All right, let's get some more comments. Again, this is the community show. Tyler Strieber, we lack athleticism. Amos will have to see the floor more to get into conference play. I agree. Yeah. This is not – I think Blackwell is an above-average athlete. I mean, that's probably really it in terms of athleticism in that top 7. That you look at the Big Ten and you say, who's an above-average athlete for a Big Ten player? Crowell is athleticism is not his forte. I wouldn't say Nolan Winter is either. Tanjay is I would say Tanjay is above average athlete. So him and Blackwell are both above average. Klesmit's fine. Kamari's fine. But yeah, Amos gives you a little something that nobody else on the team does. And some of that was going to show up in weak side rim protection, right? Where somebody gets beat and Amos should be able to come from the weak side and help protect the rim with his bounciness and his length. That's where some of that's going to come to play. It's going to come to play in tipped balls, covering a little more ground in the pick and roll defense if he's the hedge guy. Those type of things where athleticism and foot speed are just a little unique, and this team needs that. So I do agree with that one. Let's throw a couple more comments in here again in the community show. Craig Hendricks, do we have a good chance to flip Jaylen Williams? I don't know a good chance. I think it's 50-50-ish. There's a better chance with Carter, obviously, coming in. But this staff doesn't mess around when they get people on campus, and it would not shock me whatsoever. Plus, I like the connection there with his quarterback teammate coming in as well. Joe Shalom says, yeah, I can't sleep anyway. Well, man, join the party then, Joe. I love it, man. Thank you for joining us, as always. Tyler Strieber, where's Jaylen Williams from? Illinois. He's from Palatine, Illinois, which when I first read it, I read it as Palpatine, Illinois. And I'm like, oh, this dude is part of the Sith, too. I'll take him. Tyler also asked, Ryan, do you expect anything new on offense versus Oregon? Any trick plays that they may have saved up to this point? Might as well pull out all the stops, got nothing to lose. I don't. I hear you. Pull out the anchors and let the engines full throttle. But trick plays take reps, they take time. And I think this team is just struggling so much to execute some basic stuff at times. I don't see a lot there. Maybe they'll make something in. But I don't even know what that would look like. Right, it's tougher to run some trick plays at times when you don't have a mobile quarterback. That limits a little bit of your bandwidth. I would just instead of trick plays, and it's a good question, man, but instead of trick plays, I would just like to see some creativity and variation in your base sets. There's a lot of inside zone. Run a counter a little more often. I would like to see maybe a bit of a jet sweep action with Tretch. Maybe a little more variability in the screen game. Maybe it's getting Dupree on the edges a little bit more as a slot receiver. I don't know, something like that, or it's not a trick play, but it's creativity. It's a little more diversity in their base sets and how they're getting the ball to their actual weapons. I would like to see more of that, and I feel like that's been lacking this year. I feel like that has been lacking, and we are coming off a bye week, so it's possible they put some wrinkles in for sure. But I just don't think you're going to see a lot of it because A, I don't think it's really Longo's bag to begin with. But B, I would just prefer they would just include a little bit more creativity in their base sets is what I would like to see more of. Let's keep going here. Dan M says, are we potentially telling Carter that Locke is not the guy long-term? What makes him interested in us now? So a couple things here. Michigan is heavily in pursuit of a 5-star quarterback. So that is cool, the Jets on Carter Smith. And I think there's been some back channel from Wisconsin. In terms of Locke, I don't think it matters, right? You're bringing in Carter Smith as a true freshman. Even if Locke is the long-term guy, Carter Smith has a couple years to try to grow in the system and get better and then compete with them. And Carter Smith is not a guy that's going to start year one, in my opinion. I could be wrong. I get plenty wrong. I get some right at times. But you look at his film, he looks more like a project. There's some footwork stuff. Again, he's got a really weird release point. I think he's got to clean a lot up, which is often what you see from multi-sport athletes because they're not focused on football year-round. Instead of in the offseason working with quarterback trainers 24/7, he's playing baseball. He's running track. I actually think that's a good thing. right? It makes them better athletes. You become a better athlete if you do varied athletic activity. I think you get more intangible qualities because you're working with different types of coaches in different situations, but it does set you back a little bit in terms of the mechanics of playing quarterback. So I don't think it matters. In my long term, my big answer to that question is I don't think whether Locke's the guy or not really matters. And in terms of what changed, Michigan is moving on to another quarterback. They got their eyes set on a 5-star guy, and I think that's pushed Carter Smith out the door a little bit. All right, well, we're going to take a quick break here, come back, a bunch more of your comments from the YouTube channel. Again, the community show, what is on your mind, coming up next on Locked On Badgers. But first, a quick break for our friends of the show over at Gametime. Gametime remains the number one source for, if you need tickets, and I said this before, man, I'm bad at this too. Like, let's just be real for a second, because this is a community where, like on our Discord, we're real with each other, right? We have a self-win section. If I'm just being real, like, I don't do enough stuff either. And don't go through life without doing stuff. Well, otherwise, what's the point? Like, get to that concert you want to go. Bring that girl to that concert that you want to go to. Go to that bucket list sporting arena, that event that you want to hit up. Like, do those things so that when you're on your deathbed and we're all going to be there, you can look back and say, I did all this stuff. I did all these things. And Gametime will get you incredibly cheap tickets to go do those things. Check off your bucket list with Gametime. You're not going to find a better place to get tickets to the events you want to go to. And again, I said it before, hit me up. We'll do it together. Go to Gametime, snag the tickets without the stress right now. Use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Download the Gametime app today. Do more stuff, and let's do it together. I'm right here with you on that one. Okay. Let's jump back into conversations. We got a bunch of comments I want to get into, things off the YouTube channel. Again, this is the community show. I always try to get your thoughts into this. This is from Rebel Within. He said, talking basketball now, only critique I have is the slow starts. Nice set of slow start today was followed by a 24-0 Badger run. Winter and Tanjay are better than I expected. Tanjay's better than I expected through 3 games as well. I expect him to be a really good third or fourth wheel, a great connector. He's shown more all-around game than I thought he had. Now, 3 games in, small sample size alert, but so far so good. And I agree with you, man. The slow starts are going to kill you against the better teams. Arizona, if you start down 17-8 against Arizona, if you start down 20-10, like, good luck. That's a really good team. Got to start quicker. We talked about Blackwell in the comments. This is from NJ Badger. I love this comment, man. He said, our new offense is perfectly fine. He's talking about scheme. The issue, the main problem, what I'm seeing is the following: we do not have the type of talent and talent level for what our offense needs to run against better defenses. That's from NJ Badger. I agree with this wholeheartedly. I've said this repeatedly. I don't think the air raid's the problem. People, I get comments all the time. They're like the air fail and you can't change identity. No, like, you can change identity if you get a good quarterback. I don't think it's more complicated than that, y'all. You can change identity if you get the right pieces for the new identity and then you execute. And people say, well, you can't get those pieces at Wisconsin. Of course you can. Of course you can. I've seen Purdue play basketball on grass with Drew Orton and Drew Brees and real quarterback talent. Like, you can get better quarterback talent and receivers at Wisconsin. It doesn't mean you have to go away from running the ball, but the air raid is not a problem. The air raid has been plenty successful in a lot of places. We haven't hit on the quarterback. It's not more complicated than that, in my opinion. I still think receiving talent could get better, but you got to hit on the quarterback. And newsflash, like, our pro style offenses were getting limited because we didn't hit on the quarterback either. It doesn't mean the pro style is a bad offense. You got to find a quarterback. It's not more complicated than that, in my opinion. Sorry, I'm getting fired up. It's like past midnight here. Let's go. James Husby, to beat top teams, we're going to need Daniel Freitag. I disagree, because I don't think we're going to beat top teams with or without him. Like, this is not so I really like this Badger team this year. I've really enjoyed watching all 3 games. Talking basketball here. I've really had fun watching them. I love the confidence that the players are playing with. I love that we're embracing modern basketball. This offense looks more efficient. They're getting shots up. I love all of that. You still got to be realistic about this team. I don't think this team is a giant killer this year. And I don't think that changes if you're playing Daniel Freitag or not. Like, I think this team is probably, I think, going to get in the tournament, but it's going to be one of those teams that you got to sweat it out a little bit. So I just don't think it's this year for that team to beat the top teams anyway. Not without a more established point guard, not without a little more athleticism. So in that sense, I don't – and Freitag's not the answer to those questions, in my opinion. The athleticism, yes, but he's not ready to play point guard at this level at a consistent basis. So I wish he was. And if he was, that might be the answer to what this team would need to do to beat top teams. But I don't think it's ready this year. And because of that, and I just, it is what it is. Not a lot of freshmen coming to college and they're not ready. Let's go down to this one to Rebel Within. He's disgruntled with Luke Fickell. Talking about Tressel, he said his best bud has given us one of the softest Wisconsin defenses in 30 years, 0 TFL, sacks, turnovers. But just wait, guys, we have a 28th ranked recruiting class coming in. Yeah, definitely a guy in Rebel Within. Appreciate the comment who is not buying the recruiting hype. The defense has not been disruptive. That is a very fair point. I still think it's a lot to do with talent. I think it's more to do with talent and scheme. I've said that repeatedly, but I know people disagree with that. That's fine. I don't think there's an NFL guy that's playing regularly right now in the front seven, and I'm not sure how people expect a defense without an NFL guy in the front seven to generate a bunch of disruptive plays. Call me crazy. I think talented guys are the ones that generally make the disruptive plays. Not that we don't have talented guys. That came out wrong. But I don't think we have NFL talented guys right now in our front seven. I think the young guys could be that. But the key to being a more disruptive defense to me is having more NFL guys in the front seven. I don't, again, it's like the quarterback thing. I don't think it's necessarily a ton more complicated than that. And I know there's people that disagree with me on it, but that's where I'm at. Thomas Miller, a really good dude, says Tonje seems more efficient than Storr. He isn't taking as many bad shots so far. Yes. Now, the one thing I will say with Storr, and I defended him last year, so I'm not going to switch positions on this. This team needed a volume shooter last year because they just needed somebody at times to get shots up. You had a team of guys who, quite frankly, weren't shooting that well. Chucky wasn't shooting that well. Connor went in a slump. Tyler Wall's not a shooter. Stephen Crowell is kind of matchup dependent. Max Klesman is hot and cold. This team needed a volume guy last year, and Storr did fill that. Like, we would not have won as many games with last year's roster if you took AJ Storr off it. That being said, I like Tonje's game more than Storr. I think it fits better. There's less ups and downs. Again, we're very early. We got to see. And better competition's coming up. But I mostly agree with this comment. Billy Bob says, sorry, Ryan, none of those dudes came to Wisconsin as NFL talent. They were coach crafted into NFL talent. He's talking about a point I was making earlier when I talked about you need more NFL guys on the roster. And those Jim Leonard teams, those Wilcox teams, those Aranda teams had more NFL guys. And he's right. Like, talent and coaching have to work together symbiotically, right? Their raw talent comes in and then it gets molded into the finished form of that talent, which gets drafted. But the raw talent has to be a certain level. And my point is, we haven't brought in a raw talent Keanu Benton lately. We haven't brought in a raw talent Nick Herbig lately, a Leo Chanel. Like, raw material, like, if you think of it just in terms of like raw material in factories, like the raw material is the athlete and the factories are the coaches. The raw material we were bringing in before was like gold, diamond, platinum. And it just, for a couple of years, it hasn't been that. I think our recruiting is getting back on track, and I think it's looking better now. But you have to find the right amount of raw talent, and then the coaches develop it. Kind of a long-winded answer, but I do think they were recruiting at they hit on some really talented guys, the previous staff, and credit to them for doing that. I don't think the upperclassmen on this roster are necessarily right there yet. Okay, a couple more comments here. Griffin Klein says Smith is that starter if he commits next year. He's the future. He's not going to start next year, Griffin. He is not. I don't think so. I don't think so. And that's okay. That's an absolute okay. Like, you get him, you get talent in the room, and then you let them develop. And if he's starting as a redshirt sophomore, that's great. Maybe I'm wrong. He looked a little raw, is what I would say. Sleet, Ryan, what's up, brother? Caleb. Caleb. Yeah, man. Awesome, man. What a good dude. Seth Bonger says, getting to watch Carter Smith in person. The kid is legit. Honestly, wouldn't be surprised if he started as a true freshman, considering he plays a very similar system, and I think Locke might transfer. He does play a similar system. He plays kind of a power spread, a lot of RPO. I'm telling you, like, he's got some mechanical stuff he has to clean up. If people are worried about Braden Locke getting balls tipped, Carter Smith has a really low delivery. He's not a very big quarterback, and his footwork is pretty choppy. Like, you can watch him in the pocket. Go watch huddle film. And I'm not knocking the kid. I really like him. He's like he's a 4-star quarterback with loads of offer lists. But I've talked to a couple scouts, and I know what they told me, which is he's a bit of a project. And when you watch the film, I think you see that as well. Now, he's a project with a really high ceiling, which is why you absolutely add him, and he'd be a home run addition. But I don't think he would be starting next year. And if he did, I think we might be in trouble. Just my take. Could be wrong. Could be wrong. Would love to be wrong in fact. All right, let's wrap it there. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Kind of an impromptu community show. I usually try to time these out a little bit better, but you guys are amazing. Guys and gals are amazing and awesome as always. Thank you for tuning into Locked On Badgers. When you're done here, go check out Locked On Big Ten, all the latest news and stories over on the Locked On Big Ten channel for the conference. This is Locked On Badgers. A ton of content coming up this week. I'm hoping to get Patrick Herb on. I think we'll have somebody from the basketball program. I think Xavier Ponu's coming on this week. I think we'll get Curtis Holland back on. So a ton of content coming up as always on Wisconsin. Appreciate the absolute heck out of all of you. And let's go get some sleep. And Tyler, the great one to wrap off. You're the man, Ryan. Have a good night. Nah, Tyler's the man. Got to meet him in person when we did our event. Such a good dude. I passed on Tyler's message to John Garcia. We'll see if he can get back on the show as well. But John Garcia was very appreciative of that. On Wisconsin, and we will talk later.